part of the issue that is at the core of what residents are unhappy about is that the meeting that is being held here in Vosloorus, they say that other residents or other surrounding communities in Ekurhuleni were not necessarily involved and were not invited. However, they also have petitions that they want to put forward to government so that they can address their issues. Another issue that came out was the fact that other residents have come to give feedback, saying that petitions that were given or submitted as far back as 15 years ago still have not had any feedback in terms of the community or residents or the families that put those petitions forward, hearing back from the Gauteng provincial government. The Gauteng legislature has said that it is just a vehicle to try and get the concerns and get the challenges and then communicate them to the various other government agencies. So it can get all very interesting and very confusing. But let's hear from those who have been participating here. So can you give us your name for the record and tell us how are you feeling about this process?
My name is Vosloorus Mohlaoli. I think this was just a PR exercise for the legislature and for government to say, no, we came, we told people this is what's going, this is what happened, and see right, abantu ba right, we're communicating, but they're not listening to us. Even the speaker, we're telling him, look, these are the problems we have, and he's talking in a condescending tone, like he's going to tell us, these are the problems you're supposed to be experiencing. But we are the ones who are residents, who are actually saying, listen, these are our complaints, these are our grievances. But he's not listening. He has a mandate, or maybe he has a way of saying, listen, this is how we're going to say it. So that's the issue we have with the government. It's not listening to us. Young John. So that's the thing we have a problem with, because the issues that we have here, we have issue of police station, we have issue of back room, we have issue because at the end of the day, this is a ghetto, this is a township. It was inherited from the apartheid era, which is now people keep putting fences around it, making it nice. But at the end of the day, the infrastructure here is ghetto. Right. We have a hostel here. Right. We have people who have been there forever, who were removed actually from Stetson View.
So on the issue of the back rooms, if you can bring it back to that, what is the challenge? Because what provincial government has been saying, it doesn't have space to perhaps create more dwellings. People are given RDP homes. Instead, what they do then, they create more backroom dwellings where they can get rent. It's putting pressures on the infrastructure. What is the community's response to that?
Well, it's two ways. Someone out there in the government is not doing their homework. The human settlement is not doing their homework because they don't understand how the township works, how the township functions. So if you are in a position to actually rent out your room or your bedroom or your RTP, that is how you're going to make a living. That is one. Because one thing we are facing here in Zahal, we're facing poverty. So if ever you are in a position to make something out of a bedroom or out of in fact, a lot of people are making that kind of money because that's the only way they can actually make a living. You understand? Because there's people coming from other provinces to work in Gauteng, to look for better jobs in Gauteng, and they would need a place to stay. Guess what happens? You are going to rent out your house. Some of people actually they put imkuku. So that makes it some sort of a living. The government is not balancing issues. It's fixing one issue and then the other loses focus.
Let's hear it from you, Mayor. You also have been here. How are you finding the whole process?
Good afternoon. My name is Faith Kabanyane. And the situation, it's a bit embarrassing. From the era that we are coming from to this era now, we are still living the same life as our parents lived. There's no change, there's nothing. Instead, people keep on promising people, but there's nothing they are doing. They are here as a legislature, but I don't see the reason yokuthi babela, because angiboni any resolution. We need a resolution as a community. We need stability as a community. But interesting, I told. Each and every time we keep on preaching, but there's no action.
But don't you think this process helps a bit, because at least you can lodge your petitions with the hope that you can get to hear them? What has been your experience in terms of the petitions? We hear some people have died waiting for their petitions to be delivered.
That's how it is. You know what? You cannot be glad with something like this. You cannot, because it doesn't give you any feedback. You don't benefit from it. Instead, they are giving you instructions that you must follow. So if Bayenza is into so, it needs to have a standing. Whenever you produce something like this, it must be productive at the end of the day for the community, for them to gain. You see, people are dying. Let's look at so many things are happening around like Salem, and nobody cares. Nobody even bothers themselves. It's like they're doing a window shop. It's like it's a window shopping behind Kubolile. Kubolile, like South Africa, Kubolile. That's a fact.
Thank you very much for that, ma'am. So that was the view from the community. But let's bring in Ezra Letswalo, who's the chairperson of the Petitions Committee. Letswalo, you've heard from yourself and you've been engaging inside there. What is your response to what the community has been saying?
Well, thank you very much for that question. Well, we will have heard the community. I think the one thing that we are taking from this session is that the levels of impatience by the residents of the different communities within our province, but I suppose even beyond, may be at an all-time high, possibly as due to instances of non-responsiveness on issues that they may have been raised. But we sought to have these community members to have an appreciation that there is a platform that is catered to respond to some of these lamentations, grievances that they may have. And if you will recall, we will have also stated in the morning that part of the reason why we're here, the intention was really to give a sense of the responses on the number of petitions that will have been submitted with the legislature, that we have been able to facilitate somewhat of interventions on their part. Well, I suppose the community might have wanted more to be had on other issues, but of course we are limited in the main to matters that fall within the executive as well as the legislative authority of the province. And we did indicate that on other issues we may have to escalate, and of course we have done that on previous occasions.
One of the gripes that really stuck out to me was when some of the residents saying the petitions that were submitted up to 15 years back had no positive comeback from the legislature or from the provincial government or from the local government structures, and this gives us a suggestion that they are not being taken seriously. Some of the people are saying those who lodged the petitions have since passed on. How do you feel hearing that?
I think in the premise, the one point that we need to make South Africans to appreciate, including the residents of Gauteng, is that the petitions standing committee in the Gauteng provincial legislature may not necessarily be in control of all the variables in respect of the resolution of either of the petitions that are received, because we receive heaps of petitions, and we strive effortlessly to try to resolve all of these petitions, and we have done that in the past. Of course, we did acknowledge at some point that there is a backlog, and the backlog is only on the account of the number of petitions that have been submitted with us. And so today's session was to be used to respond to a number of those petitions that might have been in the pipeline, historically. But unfortunately, other issues might have, arose.
No, thank you very much for that, Mr. Nzalo. That's Mr. Nzalo from the Gauteng legislature, just giving us the provincial overview of how the processes works and what could be at the heart of some of the challenges and what is being done. Admitting there that there might be some backlogs, but you heard from the passion of those that I spoke to earlier, the residents, saying that while they are participating in the process, they don't see it as something that is beneficial to them. And of course the issue of backroom dwellings and the mismanagement of the RDP rollout process, RDP being the term given to the low-cost housing for people in communities like this one who don't have access to bonds and who still are living in shacks, many of them. There's been some also controversy as to how that has been managed when people receive those properties and then allow others then to rent out from them. One of the people I spoke to earlier said that this is a means for communities to raise some kind of funds and sustain themselves. So a myriad of issues, and they've all been playing out